The hip-hop world just suffered a catastrophic cultural meltdown after Drake dropped the most ruthless, personal, and devastating diss track in music history, officially titled Bloodlines and Bankruptcies, featuring raw audio confessionals from Rick Ross's own disowned siblings and estranged cousins. In what industry veterans are calling an unforgivable psychological execution, the Six God completely bypassed standard rap insults to expose the darkest, most closely guarded family secrets inside William Roberts' household. Hearing Ross's own estranged blood relatives openly accuse him on high-definition studio audio of cutting them off, abandoning his childhood home, and faking his entire billionaire family patriarch persona has completely stunned millions of fans around the world. The untouchable facade of Maybach Music Group has been shredded from the inside out, leaving Rick Ross in a state of absolute, frantic emotional ruin as his deepest personal betrayals are broadcast across every streaming platform. Stay locked in until the final second of this video, because the secret contracts, the frantic behind-the-scenes legal emergency, and Rick Ross's incoming retaliation prove this multi-million-dollar war has crossed into dangerous, irreversible territory. To understand how this unprecedented level of psychological warfare erupted, you have to examine the fractured alliance, hidden resentments, and decade-long power struggle between Drake and Rick Ross. For years, Aubrey, Drake, Graham, and Rick Ross represented one of the most prolific, hit-making duos in modern hip-hop history. From luxury anthems like Aston Martin Music and Stay Schemin', to chart-dominating collaborations like Gold Roses and Lord Knows, their creative chemistry appeared unbreakable. To the public, they were more than frequent collaborators. They portrayed an image of two untouchable titans sharing private jets, exclusive designer estates, and multi-million-dollar boardrooms. Ross championed Drake's melodic precision, while Drake routinely credited Ross for providing the cinematic, opulent backdrops that define the golden era of their luxury rap aesthetic. However, behind the glossy music videos and velvet-roped VIP sections, deep-rooted tensions began quietly festering beneath the surface. Industry insiders knew that their relationship was built on a fragile foundation of competitive ego and corporate maneuvering. As Drake ascended into an unprecedented stratosphere of global streaming dominance and financial independence, the power dynamic shifted radically. Ross, who previously viewed himself as the veteran big brother and street godfather in the relationship, found himself increasingly reliant on Drake features to maintain mainstream commercial relevance for Maybach Music Group. The tipping point arrived when the broader rap landscape fractured into an all-out civil war. When high-profile rivalries ignited across the industry, Rick Ross made the calculated decision to publicly sever ties with Drake, dropping hostile diss records like Champagne Moments, mocking Drake's heritage, accusing him of cosmetic surgeries, and actively aligning with the Toronto superstar's fiercest corporate and creative enemies. Ross believed he held the moral high ground, relentlessly attacking Drake's authenticity and portraying himself as the authentic street king and generous family patriarch who built an empire strictly on loyalty and brotherhood. For over a decade, Rick Ross built his entire personal mythology around the concept of unconditional family loyalty. He branded himself as the benevolent provider who took care of everyone from his hometown of Carroll City to the farthest branches of his family tree. Through lyrics, documentary appearances, and social media showcases of his 200-acre Georgia estate, Ross projected an aura of an untouchable provider who lifted his entire bloodline out of poverty into generational luxury. Yet, within the closed circles of Miami and Atlanta real estate, persistent whispers told a much darker, tragic story. Confidential reports from former business associates and estranged family acquaintances suggested that behind the gates of his sprawling mansions, a bitter internal family civil war had been raging for nearly 7 years. Several of Ross's immediate siblings, half-brothers, and close cousins had allegedly been completely excommunicated from his inner circle following fierce disputes over unfulfilled financial promises, unpaid medical bills, and disputed real estate deeds. While Ross flaunted multi-million-dollar luxury vehicles and vintage watch collections online, several of his own blood relatives were reportedly living paycheck to paycheck, blocked on all communication channels, and legally barred by non-disclosure threats from speaking to the press. Drake, known throughout the industry as a master of forensic research and psychological retribution, spent months quietly operating in the shadows. Rather than engaging in surface-level social media back and forth, Drake's private investigative team located Ross's estranged siblings and disowned family members living across Florida and Georgia, flying them into private, high-security recording studios under absolute secrecy. Drake sat down with Ross's own bloodline, documenting their raw heartbreak, unresolved trauma, and decades of alleged emotional abandonment. Drake didn't just write a rap song. He engineered the ultimate emotional execution, weaponizing the very people Rick Ross left behind to dismantle the biggest boss myth on a global stage. The detonation occurred at precisely 2:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, when Drake dropped an unannounced 9-minute audio file exclusively across private streaming links and soundboard channels titled Bloodlines and Bankruptcies, The Family Meeting. Within 4 minutes, over 800,000 concurrent listeners flooded the servers, crashing multiple secondary hosting sites as the track spread like an unstoppable digital wildfire. The song didn't open with a traditional drum pattern or a boastful hook. Instead, it opened with a cold, atmospheric piano chord, suddenly interrupted by the unmistakable, cracking voice of an older man speaking into a studio microphone. The voice identified himself as Marcus Roberts, Rick Ross's estranged older half-brother, who had been completely absent from public view for over a decade. The opening voice note was chilling, agonizingly personal, and deeply emotional. "William, you bought 300 acres in Georgia and a fleet of cars you don't even drive, but when Mama's childhood house in Carroll City was facing foreclosure in 2018, you changed your phone number. You had your security guards lock the front gate on your own blood nephews. You built a whole rap career pretending to be a generous cartel boss, but you won't even pay $5,000 for your own sister's insulin medication. You left us in the dirt while you played billionaire for the cameras." As the painful monologue faded out, Drake stepped up to the microphone with a cold, clinical cadence, delivering lines that cut straight through the core of Rick Ross's legacy. "You talk about loyalty, but your own blood is calling my phone. / left your sister in the trenches while you sit on a rented throne. / Marcus told me how you forged the deed to Mama's place. / put a non-disclosure on your kin just to save some face. / you ain't a boss. William, you're a runaway child. / built a golden prison while your family runs wild." The track continued for 2 full verses before shifting into another audio interlude, this time featuring 2 of Ross's first cousins, who alleged that Ross had used shell LLCs to strip their names from early family real estate inheritances. Hearing Ross's own relatives speak with such raw, unfiltered heartbreak on a Drake record completely stunned the hip-hop community. This was no longer a conventional rap battle about designer clothes, watch collections, or streaming chart numbers. It was a deeply personal, psychological dissection of a man's private domestic life. The live comment sections and forum threads went into an absolute frenzy. Listeners couldn't believe Drake had managed to orchestrate a collaboration with the immediate relatives of his fiercest rival. Then came the first catastrophic twist that turned this viral audio release into a full-scale emotional crisis. Within 45 minutes of the track's release, a frantic, unverified video surfaced from outside a residential property in Miami Gardens. The video showed Rick Ross's longtime head of security and 2 unidentified associates pulling up to the home of one of the featured cousins in the dead of night, demanding that they retract their statements and claiming the audio had been obtained under false pretenses through an unauthorized documentary project. The confrontation quickly turned physical as neighbors began filming from their porches, capturing loud shouting matches and local police cruisers arriving on the scene with flashing lights. Drake had not just dropped a record, he had ignited an active, volatile domestic civil war right in Rick Ross's backyard, completely shattering the illusion of peace and leaving the Maybach music group camp in a state of absolute, panicking damage control. By 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, The fallout from bloodlines and bankruptcies had completely overwhelmed every major social media platform, with hashtags like hashtag Drake's family meeting, hashtag Rick Ross exposed, and hashtag Marcus Roberts speaks pulling in over 120 million impressions in a matter of hours. The entire hip-hop community was locked in a state of absolute disbelief as music analysts, cultural commentators, and casual fans replayed the agonizing audio confessionals, dissecting every bar and every emotional accusation leveled by Rick Ross's own estranged blood relatives. At 4:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and visibly shaken and furious Rick Ross went live on his personal social media from inside his private home studio in Atlanta. Surrounded by a tense, silent entourage, Ross paced aggressively across the room, sweating heavily under the studio spotlights with a half-lit cigar trembling between his fingers. Looking straight into the lens, his voice cracked with a mixture of raw fury and undeniable emotional distress. Aubrey is a demonic, manipulative predator who preys on vulnerable, struggling people. You flew out bitter. Estranged individuals who haven't been part of my life in 15 years, waved a couple $1,000s in front of their faces, and paid them to read a script. My family is protected. My mother is taken care of. Marcus was cut off because of his own reckless lifestyle, and Aubrey knows that. To bring a man's family into a rap disagreement shows you have zero morals, zero honor, and zero street codes. You crossed a boundary that can never be undone. While Ross tried desperately to frame the diss track as an unethical exploitation of estranged relatives, the cracks in his composed, big boss demeanor were painfully obvious. Viewers and commentators noted that Ross never once denied the specific property disputes, the unpaid medical claims, or the heavy non-disclosure agreements that Marcus Roberts had brought up on the record. Instead of shutting the controversy down, Ross's defensive, emotionally unstable broadcast only poured more gasoline onto the roaring fire. Then came the second, jaw-dropping twist that elevated this scandal from a bitter rap feud into a massive, multi-million-dollar legal and industry catastrophe. At 6:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, a prominent entertainment law newsletter published leaked digital receipts and corporate bank transfer documentation linking Drake's private management holding company directly to a high-end estate planning and legal trust fund in South Florida. The leaked documents revealed that Drake hadn't just paid Ross's family members a one-time studio appearance fee. He had quietly funded a complete, multi-million-dollar legal trust for Marcus Roberts and his estranged cousins, formally financing their private lawsuits to challenge Rick Ross's sole ownership of several legacy family properties in Carroll City and Miami Gardens. Even worse, the leaked filings contained signed affidavits from the family members stating that they had voluntarily surrendered their life stories, voice recordings, and private family archive photos to Drake's production team for a full-scale, tell-all investigative docuseries titled Behind the Maybach Curtain. The realization hit the culture like a tidal wave. Drake didn't just drop a devastating song. He had systematically bankrolled a coordinated, long-term legal and public relations offensive designed to bleed Rick Ross financially, legally, and emotionally from the inside out. The psychological warfare had reached an unthinkable level, leaving Rick Ross's entire multi-million-dollar brand hanging by a thread. The release of bloodlines and bankruptcies and the subsequent legal fund revelations detonated an absolute media superstorm, completely dividing social media, hip-hop radio, and music industry executive suites into hostile, screaming factions. Within 12 hours, the track and its surrounding controversy generated over 200 million global interactions, obliterating previous engagement records across X, YouTube, and TikTok. On one side of the digital war, millions of fans, rap commentators, and cultural analysts declared Drake's maneuver the most ruthless, devastating psychological masterstroke in the history of rap beef. At @RapJudas_watch, Drake didn't just win a rap battle, he dismantled Rick Ross's entire existence. Rick Ross spent 15 years rapping about buying properties for his hometown and being a neighborhood savior, only for his actual brother to get on a Drake track and tell the world he let his sister struggle for insulin. The boss persona is completely dead. At OVO_strategist, setting up a legal defense trust for Ross's estranged family to sue him for his original properties is absolute 4D corporate warfare. Drake turned a rap diss into an active probate court battle. Nobody has ever weaponized real life against an opponent at this level. At culturecritique_daily, the audio interludes made my stomach turn. When Marcus Roberts said, "You built a golden prison while your family runs wild," you could feel the decades of genuine pain. You can't rap your way out of that kind of real-world exposure. However, an equally passionate and vocal faction of hip-hop purists, veteran artists, and Southern rap loyalists pushed back aggressively, accusing Drake of violating sacred street ethics and turning personal family trauma into commercial entertainment. At Miami Streets_unfiltered, Drake crossed an unforgivable line. Rap beef is supposed to stay between the artists. Bringing in estranged family members with mental health struggles and paying them to air out 30-year-old family disputes on wax is evil and exploitative. This isn't hip-hop, it's toxic reality TV. At SouthernBoss_family, every large family has bitter relatives who feel entitled to money they didn't work for. Ross built a multi-hundred-million-dollar empire on his own back. Drake funding their lawsuits just proves he has unlimited money and zero morals. Real ones, no family business stays in the house. At hiphopethics_council, weaponizing private family property deeds and medical histories sets a terrifying precedent for the culture. If artists start funding each other's family lawsuits, this stops being art and becomes destructive legal warfare with real human casualties. The controversy quickly blew past internet forums and dominated mainstream broadcasting platforms. On The Breakfast Club, Charlemagne the God and DJ Envy hosted an explosive 2-hour emergency debate, taking calls from music executives, legal experts, and family therapists debating whether an artist's public image can ever recover after being condemned by their own bloodline on a multi-platinum record. Prominent entertainment lawyers called into live broadcasts, warning that the pending probate lawsuits funded by Drake's trust could freeze several of Maybach Music Group's key physical assets in Florida. Meanwhile, major corporate brand partners and luxury sponsors associated with Rick Ross's annual car shows and hospitality ventures quietly launched internal reviews, terrified of the toxic publicity surrounding allegations of family abandonment and property forgery. Memes depicting Drake sitting at Rick Ross's family Thanksgiving dinner flooded TikTok, racking up hundreds of millions of views. The entire entertainment world remained completely paralyzed, torn between morbid fascination at the unprecedented level of personal warfare and deep shock at the sudden, utter destruction of hip-hop's biggest boss. Just when the world assumed this feud had reached its absolute legal and emotional boiling point, a final, mind-bending twist detonated from inside a secure federal courtroom in Miami that threatens to turn this entire hip-hop war into an unprecedented corporate and criminal disaster. At 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, emergency sealed documents were filed with the United States District Court for the Southern District of Florida by Rick Ross's lead corporate litigation team. The filing demanded an immediate, nationwide federal injunction against Drake, OVO Sound, and all associated digital streaming distributors to forcibly scrub bloodlines and bankruptcies from every digital platform globally. Ross's legal camp claimed that the audio interludes were acquired through illegal wiretapping, extortionate financial coercion of vulnerable individuals, and a severe breach of binding, decades-old family non-disclosure agreements. Maybach Music Group's attorneys officially threatened a staggering $75 million emergency lawsuit for tortious interference and defamation. However, Drake's inner circle was prepared for the retaliation, firing back with a nuclear counterstrike that brought the entire entertainment world to a stunned halt. Taking to his private social media broadcast at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Drake posted a high-resolution screenshot of an unreleased, encrypted multi-track session titled Bloodlines_part_2_the_mothers_testimony, wave. Underneath the file preview, Drake attached a live 24-hour digital countdown timer, accompanied by a cold, devastating audio snippet that sent pure shockwaves through both hip-hop and legal communities. You want to run to federal court, William? Go ahead and file that emergency injunction. The exact second your lawyers step in front of that judge, I'm releasing part 2. Marcus was just the opening act. Wait until the world hears your own mother and your eldest sister on tape, explaining where the startup money for Maybach Music really came from in 2006 and how you left them to fend for themselves while you built a fantasy empire for the cameras. You have 24 hours to pull back your lawsuits and step down, or I release the rest of the family archives to the world. Let that sink in. The track that broke the internet was only the opening salvo of a much deeper, calculated operation. Drake is allegedly sitting on direct, high-definition audio recordings from the matriarchs of the Roberts family, recordings that threaten to legally and publicly dismantle the financial origin story of Maybach Music Group itself. The entire culture is now standing on the edge of a massive precipice. If Rick Ross moves forward with his federal lawsuit to protect his brand, Drake will press play on part 2 and unleash the most destructive, deeply personal audio files in music history. Both sides have their fingers hovering over the nuclear launch codes, and neither side is backing down. Will Rick Ross risk everything in federal court and watch his entire origin story unravel before millions of fans? Or will the boss be forced to swallow the ultimate defeat to keep his family's darkest secrets locked away forever? The 24-hour countdown is ticking. The pressure is at a code red maximum, and the next 24 hours will determine the fate of 2 legendary empires. This has been without a doubt the single most shocking, personal, and devastating psychological warfare the hip-hop world has ever witnessed. Now I want to hear directly from you, the real voice of the culture, down in the comments. Did Drake pull off the ultimate, unbeatable masterclass by bringing Rick Ross's estranged blood family into this feud? Or did he cross an unforgivable ethical line that should never be crossed in music? Do you believe Marcus Roberts and the family members are speaking pure truth? Or were they financially manipulated to read a calculated script? What do you think happens if Drake's countdown hits 0 and he actually drops part 2 featuring Rick Ross's mother's testimony? Drop your wildest theories, legal predictions, and unfiltered reactions in the comments section down below right now. I am going to be pinned in the comments, reading and replying to the most intense breakdowns all day long. If your mind was completely blown by this emergency breakdown, smash that like button immediately. It helps the algorithm push this crazy story to rap fans all across the globe. And make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell right now. We are tracking this high-stakes standoff live as it develops across Miami, Atlanta, and Toronto, and the exact second Ross's lawyers make their move in federal court, or the moment Drake's 24-hour countdown hits 0, we will be dropping an exclusive, emergency follow-up video you cannot afford to miss. Thank you for watching, stay locked in, and I will see you in the very next video.